chose the book Leadership by Rudolph Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani was formerly the mayor of New York from 1994 to 2001. After the way he dealt with the 9/11 attack, Queen Elizabeth II presented him with an honorary knighthood. Rudy Giuliani also ran for president during the 2008 election as a Republican candidate. Giuliani greatly impacted the crime rate, shootings, murders, unemployment rate, and taxes dramatically in New York. According to TrustLeader.org, during Giuliani's 2 terms as mayor of New York, the crime rate was cut by 57%, shootings decreased by 75%, 90,000 guns were removed from the streets, and he reduced unemployment by nearly half. A little bit about the book on Leadership is an autobiography by Rudy Giuliani, which was written during his time as mayor of New York. This book is intended to show how he overcame difficulties as mayor of New York City, his deal with pancreatic cancer, the divorce of his wife, and the terrorist attack of 9/11. He shows how he used techniques and overcame these tragedies by adapting to cards that he was dealt and responding in the best way he found possible. He was not prepared for the terrorist attacks, yet he dealt with them successfully by reassuring the city of New York that they would cooperate and rebuild the city and deal with this tragedy in the best way possible. I feel like this book is intended for people that are interested in Rudy Giuliani or just Giuliani fans in general. People interested in the life as a mayor of a major city or how a prestigious leader deals with tragedy and crisis. Also, what it was like dealing with the 9/11 terrorist attacks and how he dealt with them, and how to overcome trials and tribulations of crisis in a positive manner. This book is an autobiography that was written during Rudy Giuliani's term as mayor of New York. Giuliani starts off by describing the events of 9/11 and what it was like having to deal with this tragedy during that time period. He also goes into detail about things like his divorce with his wife, dealing with prostate cancer, and how he was able to effectively reduce the crime rate, murder rate, shooting rate, and unemployment rate of New York significantly. Giuliani then goes on describing the importance of goal setting and tracking your work, such as taking notes and memos, and even keeping a journal, which we have learned and discussed in this class. Perhaps what I found most interesting about Giuliani's view on leadership is the fact that he believes that true leaders should continue learning in order to become even better leaders, which I completely agree with, and I like this ideology. This book teaches, as previously stated in the last slide, that leaders should continue to keep learning in order to grow as people and leaders, which will better them as people and leaders, which ties into learning from personal experience. This means learning from things such as your own mistakes or leadership techniques that you may have used before that weren't so successful, or leadership techniques that have worked well for you, or even leadership techniques that you may personally feel the most comfortable with. One thing this book teaches that many people haven't had to go through from a leadership standpoint is how to overcome adversity and crisis situations in the best way possible. Giuliani was able to do this by going to ground zero and checking on things. He made the New Yorker he made New Yorkers feel like he was one of them and that they weren't in this alone. He also reassured the citizens of New York City that they will overcome this tragedy and they will rebuild this city together, and they can only get better from here on out. Another ideology that Giuliani believes in is consistency as a leader, which I believe is a very good ideology as well because consistency is reassuring on its own. Giuliani falls under theory Y, which means that he motivates himself and always wants to do a good job. He also believes that if he treats people well as a leader, they will do the same, which you can find in our textbook. He's also a very good expressive and situational leader because he has shown that he can overcome difficulties in a positive manner, even though he was unprepared for such a tragedy. This book has good ideologies on leadership, but it's mainly the personal experiences and beliefs of Rudy Giuliani throughout this book, so it may lack credibility due to only being one person's view on leadership, even though he was a very successful leader. Giuliani's book confirms a lot of the terms and ideologies on leadership that we have learned in class, such as Theory Y, being an expressive leader, and being a situational leader, which I discussed in the previous slide. The weaknesses of this book are the fact that it is all past experiences of Rudy Giuliani, so the views on leadership could be considered very biased. He also doesn't discuss things such as his failures as a leader, which would be very beneficial to readers interested in leadership and how to respond when being a leader fails, because everyone fails. It's how they overcome their own failures that people may find interesting and be able to learn from. If he was able to discuss his failures as a leader, it would be beneficial to readers interested in learning about leadership. The strengths of this book are how Giuliani successfully overcame difficult situations, like how he dealt with his divorce, how he dealt with prostate cancer, how he dealt with the crime and murder rate in New York, and how he was able to overcome the tragedy of the 9/11 attacks effectively. I would only recommend this book to people interested in Rudy Giuliani or what Rudy Giuliani's life was like as mayor of New York, but I would not recommend this book to people who are primarily focused on a reliable source on leadership techniques alone. The reason I chose this book is because I am a fan of Rudy Giuliani, and I respect the way that he dealt with the negative views people had on crime rate and murder rate in New York, and more importantly, the way he successfully dealt with the 9/11 tragedy. I believe that he was a very good mayor in probably one of the most difficult cities in the United States. Rudy Giuliani's autobiography of his life as mayor is a very positive read and shows how he overcame the difficulties of being mayor, going through divorce, dealing with prostate cancer, and dealing with 9/11. Overall, this book is an interesting story on his life, but it is nothing nearly more than that. It's not so much focused on how to become an effective leader, but Rudy Giuliani's personal views on himself as a leader. Thank you.